Our next speaker is Brenda O'Brien, who represents the European Agency for Safety and Health at Work. Now, Brenda is also a countryman of mine who lives not too far from where I work at the moment. But Brenda has been involved in this area since 2002, when she was based in Bilbao, and since 2005 she's been based in Brussels. And before we came on stage, she informed me that she has recently received funding for a pilot project for dealing with increasing age of workers in the workforce. So I was just going to hand over to Brenda, and I'm very interested to hear what she has to say.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here again with this group. Even though the European Agency for Safety and Health at Work is not a formal endorser of your group, it's because we have legal impediments to endorsing groups. But I hope that we lend and show our support to you by our attendance at your events. And also I would like to say that we can help publicise your events. We have a very good network for publicising issues, so in future don't hold back. If you'd like us to throw stuff out there on our network, we can do that very easily for you, because we do believe that the work you do is very important. I will focus my remarks on pointing you in the direction of the work we're doing, because actually there's so much going on in work-related occupational disease and pain at the moment in my organisation that in 10 minutes I would not be able to go through it with you. But what I can do, hopefully, is give you a little flavour of what it is we're doing in Bilbao. The agency was established by Council Directive or Council Regulation in 1994, and it was established in Bilbao to provide everybody really who's interested in occupational safety and health with valid, relevant evidence-based data, and to communicate important messages to Europe's workplaces. We also try and predict what the workplace in 10 years' time will look like, what will be the major health issues in 20 years' time. We have a risk observatory engaged in forecasting activities, so we cover a very broad range. I'm the only member of staff based in Brussels. We run a small Brussels liaison office to liaise with the European Parliament, the Commission, the Council, the European social partners. And for those of you who are not familiar with our work, it's worth noting that our structure is a bit unusual in that we are almost completely tripartite in the way we work. Our board is tripartite. Our advisory groups, our working groups, our research is channeled through a system of tripartism that is institutionalised not only at European level but also at national level. So we have advisory groups, we have a board, we have our headquarters in Bilbao, but we have an official network in every member state. Sorry about that slide, it's probably illegible for you. But perhaps if they were distributed later, that really is a list of all of the countries in our network. Each country is obliged to appoint a representative for the agency. We call them focal points. And the focal points are obliged in their work at national level to carry out their work in a tripartite way. So in other words, governments, employers and worker representation. Now, one of the things that I'd like to just look at with you is we do a lot of work now. A lot of the focus now is on prevention and trying to improve diseases happening in the first place in Europe's workplaces. And it's very clear from ILO statistics, and I have to say not from Eurostat statistics, but it's very clear from ILO statistics that the number of fatalities attributed to work-related accidents and diseases in the European Union is unacceptably high. Now, the Eurostat figures are based on figures we receive from national central statistics offices, and there is general acceptance Europe-wide that there is quite a strong level of under-reporting. So the ILO along with the Finnish Institute of Occupational Health, use an attributable fraction method of looking at occupational fatalities and deaths and disease, and I think their statistics are very, very valid. We ourselves in Bilbao, we have carried out the only dedicated survey on occupational safety and health in small and medium-sized enterprises in Europe. It's called Essener. And I just put one slide up there because it's not easy to read. But when companies, small and medium-sized enterprises, said to us that they did not carry out risk assessments to see if people were in danger of developing diseases or in danger for their safety, when they didn't carry out risk assessments in the workplace, which, by the way, they're legally obliged to, 35–40% of them said the reason they didn't assess risks is because there were no risks. So there's this sort of teleological argumentation going on. So we don't look for problems because we don't have any problems. Now, apart from the legal obligation that I mentioned on every employer to carry out a risk assessment in the workplace, one of the big issues for us now is the lack of awareness of the incredible costs of occupational safety and health badly managed in Europe, and how well managed occupational safety and health can contribute to productivity, and also, I would argue, to the personal well-being of workers. And I'll come back to older workers later on. So for us, the big challenge is in companies, it's in the small companies. We find that the bigger the company, the greater the emphasis or recognition of occupational disease, whether it's ergonomic-related risks or chemicals, or exposure to chemicals, that there is a much bigger awareness in bigger companies. But you probably know that most of Europe's labour market is made up of small and medium-sized enterprises, and in fact we see a growing number of micro-enterprises. So a lot of the work we do in Bilbao is we run campaigns. And these are awareness-raising tools that we have been perfecting, well, attempting to perfect, since we came into existence. We are now recognised as the world's biggest occupational safety and health campaign because we go beyond the boundaries of Europe. We work with national governments. We use the tripartite structure. Our campaigns last for 2 years, and this year and last year, our campaign was called Working Together for Risk Prevention, because all of the research shows that there are 2 magic ingredients in keeping your workforce healthy and safe in any workplace, and it's not rocket science. The 2 magic ingredients are leadership by management and worker participation. And in companies where they successfully combine those 2 elements in managing risk and in, let's say, creating a preventive culture in the company, these are the companies that we can prove empirically are more productive. And we've lots of examples from different member states about the link between good occupational safety and health and productivity. The next campaign is going to be on psychosocial risk and stress management. Every single country in Europe, in EU27, now and soon to be 28, now reports an increase in work-related stress. And I don't have to tell people like you the link between psychosocial risk and pain or increasing pain. I leave you draw your own conclusions on that. We know that the two biggest reasons for absenteeism for longer than 3 days from work are due to musculoskeletal disorders, and the second one is psychosocial risk. So stress, burnout, and inability to carry out tasks. So these are the two biggest reasons in Europe why people are unable to go to work and why people are staying away from work. So our campaign to be launched next year will be looking at psychosocial risk, and not only looking at the problem but also encouraging companies to address it, because there are solutions. It's not something that you cannot deal with, you can deal with it, and we're preparing for that. I hope that you might think of getting involved in our campaign. We also now in Bilbao are, with a lot of governments, are setting up national tailor-made small risk assessment electronic tools, which we provide free, online interactive risk assessment tools. We have invested in the technology, in the platforms, in the wherever up there in the cloud we store all this information, and we give it for free to national governments and social partners to develop tools to help small and medium-sized companies identify, and micro companies, where are their workers most likely to start getting sick and how can you prevent it. And we also in Bilbao have a risk observatory where we try to anticipate future risks. And there we try to include a variety of methods, the Delphi method, looking at new and emerging risks. New risks are ones we haven't seen before. For example, the risks associated with working with nanotechnologies. Emerging risks are risks that we know all about, but are increasing, such as psychosocial risk. We also try and deliver into Europe's workplaces some non-verbal communication material that can be used in a pedagogical way to train workers, and we also are now very much pushing stuff into schools. You can't get them young enough, that's our view. So we're now trying to get into schools the notion that workplaces can be dangerous, they can be injurious to your health, but with proper management, they can be great places. We're also running a very big project on workplace health promotion and, as I mentioned, mainstreaming health and safety into all levels of education. So finally, I would just like to take a moment to talk about a new project we've started, and it's going to run for 2 years, and it is exactly thanks to this institution that it is now underway. The European Parliament earmarked funding to carry out a pilot initiative on looking at the issue of older workers in Europe's workplaces from an occupational safety and health perspective. The task was given to the European Commission, and we are doing the work on behalf of the Commission, or in cahoots with the Commission. We're doing it for them. And I think it's raising a lot of issues that are of relevance to this audience today. We know that there's a shocking number of people dropping out of Europe's labour force before reaching the formal retirement age, whatever that retirement age is. It's different in every country. I do know there's a trend to increase it. And there is, if you're not moved by the moral or the ethical argument of looking at all of the people who are dropping out due to pain, illness and disease and incapacity before retirement age, then we are finding that employers and governments are very impressed and moved by the economic argument. the cost of the number of people not being able to work in their retirement age is phenomenal, and you will find the latest statistics on that on our website. What we're now looking to do, with the help of the European Parliament, which was, and it was the Employment and Social Affairs Committee who flagged up this whole project, what we're hoping to do is to identify existing good practices that are there to see if they can be exchanged across nations. I know, for example, in Austria, there are many pilot projects involved where companies are encouraged to age audit. And so Germany and Austria are quite, well advanced in the notion of companies age auditing, looking at the profile of the ages of their workers and figuring out what's it going to look like in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, or 15 years' time. And this is deeply relevant, and it's very effective work, and we're hoping to try and recognise that we need a holistic approach to the older workers issue. But in order to have more older workers staying in the workforce up until their retirement age, you've got to start young. You've got to start with them from the first day they start work and before. And the other thing that I'd just like to draw your attention on with this older workers pilot initiative is that we really like to look closer into the rehabilitation issue. Young workers are more likely to be off work sick than older workers, which sort of goes against a myth that exists, I think. But when older workers are off sick, it does tend to mean that they're off for a longer period. And it is our view, and there's very convincing evidence from some member states, that people who have chronic disease or people with pain who do wish to return to work, I'm not talking about people who are unable to work, but I'm talking about those who do wish to work, sometimes do not have the support required for them, and sometimes the very small workplace adaptations necessary that would enable them to get back into being fully functioning working members of society. So I'm very excited about this has just started, and we'll be reporting to the European Parliament at the end of the year on the first phase, and hopefully by the end of next year on our final results. We also have on our website, and our website is in 23 languages. Please go there and have a look at our extensive work on musculoskeletal disorders. Sometimes we look at each other in Bilbao and we think we've been working on this musculoskeletal disorder issue for so long, and yet where is the improvement? You can only keep, pushing at it, raising awareness. There is still, as I say, an extraordinary lack of awareness of musculoskeletal disorder issues and the profoundly crippling effects that these diseases can have. So, and of course it's across all the sectors, the economic sectors as well. It's not just people engaged in manual handling or in construction, it's also in the growing services sector. Right, I'll wind up. Finally, just to say, there is a temptation to say that in times of crisis, spending on occupational safety and health is an unnecessary and a luxury, or it is a luxury that we cannot afford. And I think that through ongoing dialogue that we do with companies and with workers, it's very clear, there's a lot of empirical evidence to show that where workplace health and safety are managed properly, that's where you save money. And these are the companies that will survive the crisis better than the others. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brenda, for your update on the European Health and Safety at Work strategy. And as you say, those companies who have good occupational health and safety and health programmes, it's good for business, and that's probably the strongest argument you can put forward at the moment.